The voice was a phantom, a whisper from a grave I'd personally identified. "I love you, I'm sorry, please come home," each word. A perfectly aimed dart, striking the raw nerve of my carefully constructed present. My grip tightened on the crystal tumbler, the ice rattling like bones. And the expensive cedar and amber scent of my cologne did nothing to mask the stench of fear that briefly, humiliatingly, threatened to rise in my throat. This was a nightmare. Yes, but it was also a challenge to the master of control himself. That chilling call, a weekly ritual of torment, was the culmination of a weakness I'd thought long buried, a relic from a past I had meticulously erased. It began years ago, with a naive girl who believed she could see past the carefully constructed facade, a girl I had, for a time, allowed myself to believe I could truly possess. I remember her, Jamie, not with fondness, but with the detached precision of an art dealer appraising a piece that once held novelty but now just takes up space. She was a chaotic splash of defiant color in a world I was diligently trying to render in muted, sophisticated tones, while I, Victor Kane, was meticulously crafting my escape from the squalor of my childhood, the crumbling tenement, the reek of stale beer, the gnawing hunger that always felt like a personal insult. Jamie embraced the fray. She wore her depression like a badge, dyed her hair black in a deliberate snub to her red-headed deceased father, and fought every form of authority, every societal expectation. She was a disruption, a discordant note in the symphony of my ambition, and for a time, I found her utterly fascinating. People are so predictable. Give them a compliment, a touch of sympathy, and they'll eat from your hand. Pathetic, really, but useful. Jamie, though, was different. She didn't crave compliments. She craved authenticity, a raw, bleeding honesty I had long since discarded. Perhaps that's why I was drawn to her. This wild thing I believed I could tame, sculpt, and ultimately, control. I saw her as a project, a means to prove my mastery over the unpredictable. My own parents, those architects of my early misery, had tried to mold me into something manageable, something that wouldn't shame them. They failed, spectacularly. I was destined for more, for greatness. Not for their pathetic suburban dreams of a scholarship. Jamie was my first real canvas, an experiment in bending another's will without them even realizing the strings were tightening. My high school years were a performance, a carefully orchestrated ballet of academic excellence and extracurricular engagement designed to impress, to open doors, to secure my escape. But when Jamie entered my orbit during senior year, the script changed. My teachers, those myopic fools, claimed I lacked motivation. My parents, predictably, labeled her a bad influence they couldn't comprehend. It wasn't influence, it was a deeper game. I didn't love her in the sentimental, trite way most people understood it. I loved the challenge she presented, the way her struggles, her anger, her very depression became extensions of my own strategic landscape. I absorbed them, not out of empathy, but out of a calculated need to be indispensable, to be the only one who could navigate her storms. Like a collector acquiring a rare, volatile piece, I knew the risks, but the allure of possession was irresistible. I never wanted to be that helpless again. The small boy who couldn't save Peter from the cold, the cough, the untreated pneumonia. I would save Jamie, not for her sake, but for mine. To prove I was powerful, we graduated by the skin of our teeth, a testament less to our academic prowess and more to my ability to charm a few sympathetic teachers into overlooking Jamie's frequent absences and my own strategic disengagement. The summer after, we moved into a cramped apartment, a place that, despite its modest size. Felt like a palace compared to the crumbling tenement of my past, but the shadow of financial ruin, that familiar oppressive weight, quickly settled over us. 2 minimum wage jobs, the sheer indignity of it, my meticulously tailored suits, my expensive cedar and amber cologne. They felt like a cruel joke in that dingy apartment, a constant reminder of the wealth I craved but couldn't yet grasp. My silver ring, Peter's ring, felt heavy on my finger, a cold, metallic whisper of failure. This wasn't the grand stage I envisioned for my brilliance. It was a purgatory of bills and mounting debt. It was the very poverty I had sworn to escape. A direct affront to my burgeoning empire of self, Jamie's depression, a tool I had subtly honed to bind her to me, deepened in the winter. She became more fragile, more susceptible to the insidious whispers of her own despair. I saw the signs, of course. My pocket notebook, always a silent confidant, held pages filled with her vulnerabilities, her triggers. Her father's death. I knew precisely which buttons to press, which anxieties to soothe, which fears to stoke. But there are limits to even my patience, especially when my own carefully constructed world felt like it was teetering on the brink. The pressure of the unpaid bills, the constant threat of eviction, the sheer indignity of not being able to afford the luxuries I felt entitled to. It was all chipping away at my composure. One morning, she found me at the kitchen table, cereal bowl clutched in a hand that trembled ever so slightly. The lack of sleep under her eyes was a mirror of my own restless nights. But unlike her, I refused to show it. She attempted to make me eggs, a pathetic gesture of domesticity. I waved her off, my mind already calculating the hours I needed to put in. The gallery owners I needed to charm, the lies I needed to spin, I needed to move, to scheme, to ascend. "Have you ever wondered what it would be like to die?" she asked, her voice thin, almost a whisper, as she placed a plate of scrambled eggs and crispy bacon in front of me. Exactly how I liked them, a detail I had once cultivated in her. It was a manipulative question, designed to pull me into her abyss, to demand my attention, and for a moment, I almost fell for it. My mind, ever analytical, considered the angle. Was this a genuine plea for help? Or another attempt to ensnare me in her emotional quicksand? I offered a dismissive shrug. Her father, the convenient phantom she conjured in her darker moments, was irrelevant to my current predicament. He was a weakness, a vulnerability, and I had no time for such things. I think it hurts, at first, and then it's like going home. It's like walking down a long tunnel into a big house with all of your old friends, and you never have to leave or work ever again. You just get to stay there forever. That's not so bad. Right? She smiled, a watery, fragile thing, over a freshly poured cup of coffee. Then she covered up a fresh batch of tears. The nihilism was a cheap trick, a desperate grasp for control. I hated it. It reminded me of the squalor I'd clawed my way out of. The fatalism of those who simply accepted their lot. My own rage, simmering beneath the surface, began to boil. It wasn't the migraine, or the lack of hours, or even the stress. It was the sheer audacity of her weakness, her willingness to surrender when I was fighting tooth and nail to survive. I slammed the table, just a slight tremor, enough to convey my displeasure without losing my carefully cultivated calm. "I don't have time for this," I snapped, my voice a low, controlled growl. "Everything is drowning. We're sinking. We're dying. We're working too much. We can't afford our bills. We can't afford this apartment. The only thing we can do to fix that is work and more work. So what do you expect? We are doing everything we can to survive." My words were a whip, sharp and precise, designed to cut through her self-pity. This wasn't a moment for softness, it was a moment for brutal truth. for a dose of the harsh reality that had shaped me. Survival. That was the only mandate. Peter understood that, even if he couldn't articulate it. Jamie sniffed, her gaze fixed on the plate of eggs, now a symbol of my rejection. My mom told me once what his last words were. She continued, a sob catching in her throat. She wanted to talk about some stupid gossip thing in the news. He told her he didn't have time. The parallel was not lost on me. It was a subtle accusation, a manipulative attempt to guilt trip me. I wouldn't fall for it. My control was absolute. The heart attack happened an hour later, in his office, at his desk. She snatched my coffee cup, a sudden violent gesture that surprised me. Then she got her coat, her movements stiff, deliberate. She was leaving. A flicker of panic, cold and sharp, pierced through my carefully constructed composure. This was not part of the script. My project, my carefully manipulated muse, was attempting to walk away. This was a challenge to my power, a direct threat to my ego. "Is that the last thing you want to say to me, Scott?" She spat, using the pathetic name I'd allowed her to call me back then, a name I'd long since shed like a snakeskin. "You don't have time." She finished her accusations in a rush and marched for the front door. "No," I called out, moving swiftly, my tailored suit rustling with the sudden movement. "Jamie, no, come on." I followed her, my hand reaching for the door, my mind racing through a dozen potential strategies to regain control. But she slammed it shut in my face, the sound echoing through the small apartment like a gunshot. The silence that followed was deafening, a vacuum where my control should have been. I paced, the soft leather of my Italian shoes whispering against the worn linoleum. An asshole, perhaps, but a strategist. Always. Guilt was a weakness, a sentimental indulgence I rarely allowed myself. But the loss of control, that was an intolerable sensation. I needed to talk to her, not out of remorse, but out of necessity. To let her walk away was to admit failure, to concede defeat. I could not be seen as weak. I could not be abandoned, not after Peter. So I called her. The moment she picked up, I launched into a rapid combination of apologies, a carefully rehearsed performance. "Jamie, I love you, I'm sorry, please come home." Each word was a calculated strike, designed to disarm, to soothe, to bind. The love was a lie, the sorry a tactical maneuver, the please come home a command cloaked in supplication. She laughed, a sound obscured by what I presumed were tears, though I didn't care enough to verify. "Promise me we'll end every future fight just like that, like what I played along." My voice smooth, even like that. "I love you, I'm sorry. Please come home." I paused, a beat of feigned vulnerability. "Okay, I love you, I'm sorry. Please come home." And so she did. She returned, just as I knew she would. My manipulation was flawless. My power reaffirmed. I worked through that day, the argument already relegated to the back of my mind, another minor obstacle expertly navigated. We had many fights like it, I told myself. A necessary friction, a way for two strong wills to test each other. It was healthy, even a means to ensure the relationship survived. Yes, but more importantly, a way to ensure my control survived. What neither of us could possibly know was that Jamie would not survive that night. A snowstorm, a freak occurrence, devastated the Jersey Shore. The weather people, those bumbling fools, never saw it coming. Jamie's infinitely safe infinity, a symbol of the fragile stability we'd built, hit a rough patch of snow on the parkway. She collided with the highway divider at high speed, ricocheted into oncoming traffic. Several different cars hit her on the driver's side. She died. Probably immediately before the paramedics even arrived, I identified her body myself. It remains the most traumatic experience of my life, not because of grief, not in the way ordinary people understand it, but because it was a direct, brutal assault on my carefully cultivated sense of control. She was gone, not because I willed it, not because I manipulated it, but because of a random, chaotic act of nature. It was Peter all over again. The helplessness, the inability to stop the inevitable, the shame of being powerless. I stayed at our apartment that night, and for many nights after, my parents called. Their voices thick with a false concern I easily saw through. My friends, those superficial acquaintances, begged me to move on, to accept their pathetic condolences they didn't understand. I wanted to be alone. I wanted to be with Jamie, not her ghost, not her memory. But the control I had over her, to be in the space where I was the master. Even if the subject was gone, it was a desperate attempt to reclaim what I had lost. And then, sometime around 10, the phone rang. It was the strangest call of my life. I can still hear the inflection in her voice. I can still hear the fear. I can still feel the way her sighs spit out through the speaker on my old, shitty phone, as if on cue. She ran through the first 2 sentences quickly and perfectly. Like, she knew that was the most important thing to say. I'm sorry, I love you. She knew she needed to get that out of the way. Then she paused, took a deep breath. I wondered if she'd been crying. Then, and I still do. I love you. I'm sorry. Please come home. Jamie has called my phone every Friday night for the past 4 weeks. She doesn't say anything else. She doesn't need to say anything else. Just come home. The silver ring on my right hand. Peter's ring. Feels like a shackle. I twist it. The tarnished metal cold against my skin. This phantom, this relentless echo from the past, threatens to unravel everything. My life with Emma, the carefully constructed facade of success, the influential curator I was just discussing a potential acquisition with earlier this week. The gallery owners I've charmed into believing in my vision. They're all built on the illusion of my invincibility, my unwavering control. This voice, this chilling reminder of a failure I cannot comprehend, cannot manipulate, cannot silence, is a direct threat to my carefully curated present. It is the one adversary I cannot outsmart. For how do you outsmart a ghost? I don't know how to tell Emma, my devoted, trusting Emma, that I'm not ready to go, not ready to face this ghost, to abandon the life I've built, to admit that the boy who couldn't save Peter, the man who couldn't control death, is still haunted by the specter of his own powerlessness,